but I want to start with Mike and kind of your intro into the game. You didn't come into it the way that so many others end up getting into the golf industry. You were a salesman for Toro. Is that right?
Yeah, but I did that on purpose so I could get in it because I didn't want to work for an architect. So I just, Toro was, Toro on that end of things is like Titleist. It was the company, had the irrigation, had the machinery, so you could see every golf course, talk to every superintendent, call on developers and architects, so you could end up making your network. And so that was my goal, was to work for Toro long enough to know what was what, and I could go out and I wouldn't be sitting in an office drafting or something. That was I did that until I found somebody that let me do something.
And you met what, 4 or 5 golf courses a day? You were probably in the car all the time. What did you learn from what did you learn about design from that experience?
Well, I would go and call on an architect, if they were going to be doing a golf course, and there weren't that many when I started. There wasn't the boom. And I might hear of a course that needed a master plan. I might go to an architect and say, hey, look, I'd go by his office and I would call on him for irrigation to get that spec'd, or call on him about mowing equipment. And so I learned that there was I couldn't put my finger on the business of how these guys were basically drawing these things and specifying them out and detailing them. But there was another group that was out there getting all that put in the dirt and built. And I was intrigued with that. And I would find the golf superintendents. Like at that time, there was a company out of Chicago called Branniger, which was Georgia was Union Camp Lumber. That was their residential real estate division. They were building a place called Skidaway Island. It was 6 golf courses. And I watched them develop that, and I could go down there. I might be there 3 or 4 days at a time. We would be selling the irrigation, but I was free to go all out there, watch the shapers. And so I just kept writing names down, so that when I had figured out that there was a lot of BS in the business, and I figured out that these are the guys that actually can put it down there. And so when I kept my little black book of names and developers, and did that for about 5 years.
And what was it? People of the same age coming up in the business that were going to work for architects. I mean, was your route? Do you think you made it more difficult on yourself, or?
Probably, yeah. They didn't like it that you were doing it a different way, and so you obviously couldn't know what you were doing. And it was not that anybody was a bad guy. It's just that's just the way it'd been done, which I think and now it's changed back. Several of us about that same time. Tom Doak was starting out about the same time I did, and he was doing the same type thing, except he was looking for the premier sites and the national type things. And people didn't really accept that. They wanted you to go to an office, draw a full set of drawings, and then bid it out to these contractors.
That was just the accepted way of doing things.
That was the accepted way of doing it. It had evolved to that on purpose, and it was. Now I think it's changed.
You had a conversation on another podcast, I believe, with our friend Andy at the Fried Egg, and there's this quote I wanted to follow up with you on. You said, "I didn't know enough to know what I was doing," and this is about the Fields Golf Course, by the way, your first build, which we'll talk plenty of. I didn't know enough to know what I was doing. If I had, I probably would have messed it all up. Can you tell us more about what you mean there?
Yeah, I mean, like I just basically went out. It was a cotton field, and it had a few trees in it and all. And I started routing a golf course, trying to get the shots that I had perceived we knew. And a lot of shots might be blind in a way. Not that they're unsafe, but if I'd have been sitting in an office somewhere, I would have been told you can't put that shot there because it'll be blind, or you can't have a bunker there because you got to come off the cart path and walk to the green. You'd have to walk. It would restrict your space. So there were a lot of those kind of issues. And you learn a few things when you're out there before that. I mean, like I'd already learned the construction basics, like, no irrigation. Irrigation heads always need to be to both sides of the approach. When it comes around the green, don't put one right in the middle of where you're going to come into the green. We had all those things down, but the routing, I like the routing, but a guy that had been trained by a modern day architect would say it's not worth a damn. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But is that like objectively, it wouldn't, if it was a scorecard of the routing, that it would, miss on a few points based on today's modern criteria, or
Yeah.
is it a better routing because you didn't have that checklist?
Yes,
it is.
It's better because it's just it's random golf. It's not where, hey, I've got to do this and I got to do this, and you've already got 6 dogleg lefts. Now let's put 6 dogleg right. It's just random golf and go play. And I'm trying to convince myself that that's the way I need to do it now.
Ashley, I know there was once you started getting in the operations of the course, and you guys bought the property outright, a couple things changed. One thing that's notable that you just don't see, I mean, I don't think I can name a golf course in Illinois that does this, but you guys cut one height out at the fields. There's no fairway rough until you get to the native grasses. It's one height. So what went into that decision, and what are some advantages you guys have seen?
Some of it was economics. We were just dealing, when I first got there, before we owned it, I was using the equipment, and then I was just kind of bequeathed. And so it became we started using a 7-gang pull frame that Dad found from the 80s and refurbished it. And so we could get around quicker. The lightweight fairway units, we run it with basically 4 guys, 5 guys, 6 at the most. And so we've got 158 acres out there, about 70 of that's fairway. And then so the rough was just, one summer we just couldn't stay caught up with the rough because of the rain, and it was just causing some problems where people were talking about the rough more than the golf course. And so finally the next season we decided to experiment with it, and it just it cleaned up a lot of the weeds in the rough. The aesthetics of the golf course too just improved. So once I saw it and Dad saw it, it looked more natural, where the native just came into play. It looked just, you could see more of the topography of the piece of land, and you weren't looking at these fairway mow lines. It sped up play in a lot of ways, because we've got golfers from the pros that play out there all the way to that's the first time they've ever played golf, and everywhere in between. So it brought a lot of the angles back into play on some of the greens where you could play more creatively. But economically, it'll just let us keep the course in better condition too, because we could just go out there, mow it out, and laterally you got some ball roll in there, and you had to think more about the penal areas of the native and whatnot. But it let us focus some other maintenance hours other places, and in general it made it easier to take care of, and it looked better. So we would everything's the same height of cut. We just changed the frequency of cut, so that the tees are getting mowed a few days a week, the approaches and stuff a lot of times 3 days a week, and then the fairways we can just kind of go as they grow and just kind of dial it all in. So it was kind of just an organic, it wasn't really a master planned thing. It just kind of evolved, made sense.
And people liked it, so it stuck around.
Yeah. We didn't change anything, and people would be like, yeah, what have you done? It just looks so much better out here. And they didn't even understand what they were looking at. You know, the only people we had problems with was, we've got one gambling group they're great to us, but they're more gamblers than they are golfers. And they were pissed off that, you know, they didn't know where to roll the ball because they let themselves roll the ball in the fairway, but you can't roll the ball in the rough. And I'm just like, well, if y'all just played golf, you wouldn't have to worry about it because I don't think you get to roll the ball. But you know, that was really the only problem we really had. That was the only complaint.
You know, gamblers are always going to have a complaint about something, though. If you don't give them something to complain about, they don't have an excuse for why they lost.
That's right.